Welcome to the Galmont Hotel Spa. My name is Adrian Bane, and you are here deep in the kitchens at the moment, and we are just getting ready for the Galway Oyster Festival. We are proud to be on the trail, and what I'm going to show you today is our organic salmon served with some samphire, served with smoked oyster velouté, and a little bit of Ireland's favourite starch, mash. So I'm going to go through each process so you get to see how to make it at home. And what we're using some Clare Island salmon. We're using some of John Ward's oysters from Castle Oysters out in Connemara. John came into me about 4 years ago, and we tasted some oysters on a Sunday, and as I said to him then, I said to him now, they were the best oysters I've ever had. We never used oysters. When we ever had oysters on the menu here at the hotel, no one really wanted them, so we ended up having to put them into a lot of sauces. So I said, John, I'll find a way to get these on the menu. We thought about it for a while, and we put on a smoked oyster velouté with some organic salmon about 3 years ago, and we don't have a lot of signature dishes here at the hotel, but that is certainly one of them. So we have had that on for 3 years. It's a very popular dish, and we love making it. Well, first, we're going to smoke off some oysters. So here at the hotel, we use a little bit of applewood, we use a little bit of thyme, and we have a little bit of oak chips at the bottom. So large, small, and even smaller. That way you catch a little bit of heat and make sure that it starts smoking. If you use just wood like that, you're going to need to make sure you soak it. If you use just thyme, you're not going to get much flavor because it's going to burn so quickly. So you use a smaller grade of wood, and it starts igniting straight away. So we have some oysters here. We're going to sit the thyme and the wood in here, and we add some of the smoke to get some smokiness into it, and we put on our tray, set that on top of it, sit it with the cup side down, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to wrap that in a little bit of tin foil. We wrap that up nice and tight. Now this can take, if you want to go nice and slow, this can take up to an hour and a half. It depends how much you want to cook the oyster. We like to keep the oysters nice and plump so that they're not smoked like a bacon. They're smoked more like you smoke a sausage, if you would. So there's lots of moisture left in it. So that goes on our grill over here, sits there, and like I said, in about 10 minutes we're going to start seeing some smoke coming out of it, and it'll be smoking away, and it'll take a little bit of time. I'm also going to have, since we have a few left over, I'm going to grill some oysters, just to give a little, just for the Oyster Festival, just so you have a little bit of smokiness and you have a bit of the fresh cooked oyster. A lot of people obviously will be going to Galway for the oysters, but there's an awful lot of the Irish population that won't go near a raw oyster, so we try to take the fear factor out of it. If they eat a mussel, if they eat a clam, it's very similar to eating an oyster. Lovely juiciness, lovely flavour, lovely salinity. So we're going to stick that straight on the grill over here. 1, 2, 3. You can chuck them and put them into a pan. I like to let them sit on the grill and cook away. What's going to happen is they're going to open up very slightly, and they're going to start cooking in their own juices, and you get a lovely meaty texture, lovely fishy flavour. I'm also going to grill a little bit of lemon for the dish. So just a couple of lemons. This is going to go into our sauce at the end, and we're going to finish the salmon in it as well. So that goes on the grill as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically we're cooking those lemons until they are nice and dark. It just gives the lemon a really nice flavour. It gives it the acidity is there, but it is just a little bit of the umami flavour as well, where you have the grill and the flavour. It's just really beautiful. So now we have some beautiful Clare Island salmon, which we got in this morning from Mary's Fish, just up the road from us, less than 2 miles. Nicely, we took it off the bone earlier today, and it's ready to go. So now we're going to cut some portions. So we serve a lot of organic salmon, we serve a lot of chowder, so we try not to have any waste. So we take off the tail, and that gets kept for chowder mix. We take off some of that lovely belly. We used to have a sushi restaurant upstairs, and when we used to prep our salmon, Kuma, our sushi chef, would always want us to hold on to the belly because he used to use it in his sushi rolls. But we still trim that up, take off the little bit of fat on membrane on the top, take off the skin, and that also goes into our chowder. So now we have our top, and now we're left with just a nice simple fillet to turn over. We like to serve about a 200 gram portion of salmon each time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut just a couple of fillets, a couple of portions off the fillet. 1, 2, 3. And again, once you're at home when you're doing this, make sure that you have a sharp knife. Make sure the salmon is fresh. That way you get a good result out of your dish. And now we have a little bit of a big one here, so we trim that off. Happy days. Now, I'm going to keep 2 portions out. Another little tip for people at home, just like you would a steak, if you take your fish out of the fridge maybe 2 or 3 minutes before you're going to cook it, even 10 minutes, it's not going to make the fish dangerous to eat. What it'll do, it'll just take a little bit of cold off the fish, and it'll cook an awful lot more quicker. It'll cook an awful lot more even. You're not left with a really overcooked outside and raw in the middle. It'll cook quicker, it'll cook more through, and we do that in the hotel the whole time. So I'm going to leave those 2 portions out, put the rest back in the fridge. We serve our salmon skin side up, and we also serve it with the skin still on. So what we try to do is we try to score the skin a little bit. That way you end up with a lovely crispy skin. And there's an awful lot of nutrients and flavors in the skin. So you see a lot of people not eating the skin. The first thing they do is peel off the skin. What we like to do is try to recommend people have it because there's all that lovely natural fish oils in the fish. So that's ready to go there. Okay, let's get rid of this real quick. We have our salmon ready. We're going to just oil it ever so slightly. Touch of vegetable oil. Salt and pepper. It's quite a thick piece of fish. So you want to make sure you're getting a good amount of seasoning on it. And again, if you season it maybe 90 seconds before you cook it, you have a better chance of the salt getting into the fish. What you don't want to do is you don't want to salt it half an hour beforehand or an hour. You're going to start curing the fish, and it's going to lose an awful lot of moisture. So don't have it seasoned too early, but just about 90 seconds. All right, let's wash my hands real quick. As Delia Smith would say, we have to show you what we have prepared earlier. So earlier this morning I was in and we just got a little bit of creamy mash ready. We are still in autumn in my head, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a bit of called cannon and chap. I have a bit of spring onion there that we're going to put into it, and we have our fish velouté. So Mary and Noel, our fish suppliers, whenever they get some prime fish in and no one wants the bones, we get the lovely fish bones, whether it be halibut, John Dory, turbot. We take that fish bones, we prep them up, we cook them off in a little bit of onion, carrot, fennel, celery, black peppercorn, and some bay leaf. And we let that come to the boil, and we let it simmer for about an hour, and then we strain it and we reduce it down. So you could be ending up with maybe 20 litres of fish stock. We bring that right down to 3 litres of stock. We add 2 litres of white wine and 1 litre of cream, and we're left with this beautiful fishy velouté. It is not strong on fish because we use the prime bones. I wouldn't recommend using the salmon bones for stock, as they're quite oily and they're just going to make the sauce cloudy, and there's not going to be a whole lot of flavour. But that is the base of our sauce. So we have our fish velouté there ready to go. Now, as you can see in front of you, we have our selection of veg. We're coming in, like I said, we're coming into autumn, so we always use spinach. When we have it available, we use a little bit of kale, and we have samphire. So samphire is often described as the asparagus of the sea. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give that a light blanch. We're going to cook the kale. We're just going to saute off the spinach as well with that in a little bit of shallot. So I'll just chop some shallot real quick. Try not to cut my fingers off. We use shallots over onions. There's just more, it packs the flavour. As the great Anthony Bourdain said, the difference between your cooking and my cooking, home cooking, and the commercial kitchen is I have shallots and you don't. So it was something I read when I was a young chef. We use it all the time. And my sous chef Martin is obsessed with shallots. Every sauce we make is started with shallots. Well, we're going to be using that now in the dish for this kale and the spinach. So we have a little frying pan. We just have a tiny knob of butter. We have a little bit of oil. The pan is already hot. We bring that get that a little bit bubbly, and so it's ready to go. And now you can see just here, you can see our oysters are opening up already. They look beautiful. So again, in a commercial kitchen, nothing gets done at the last second. It's all about your mise-en-place or your prep. So anything at home when you're at home that you can get done earlier in the day, try get it done earlier. That might be making the mash and warming it up in a little bit of pot with some cream and butter. That might be cooking off the kale. That might be cooking off the shallot. That might be, as I showed you, having the velouté ready to go. That might be having the oysters grilled before and the oysters smoked. We don't smoke the oysters to order. We smoke them earlier in the day and we use them then when we need them. So it's just all about working smarter, not harder. And in a kitchen as busy as we are, we need to work extremely smart. So that now is ready to go. Bit of colour on it. We let that cook down over there and we're ready to go with that. Now I'm going to get the salmon in the pan. So again, just a little bit of oil, and we're using a nice non-stick pan, a new one, so there should be no problem in getting the skin nice and crispy. Famous last words. So we get that on there nice and hot. So we use our induction on it, and you always put the fish into the pan away from you. That way you don't have oil splattering back up on you. You want to make sure that the pan is nice and hot. And once you get the salmon in there, what you want to make sure is that you're turning down the temperature, or you're going to just have it burnt on one side and not cooked on the other. So now drop it in, nice and gentle, and give it a bit of a push. What's going to happen is that the meat is so fresh, it's going to try and seize up a little bit. So just push against that ever so slightly. Perfect, that's one, and that's two. Again, practice what I preach. Down it goes. And we'll turn that down to maybe a 6. So that's now on the stove. So just open the top, and then over further on the grill to Stephen's left is the smoker. You can just start to see that there's heat coming out of the oysters, and they are slowly beginning to smoke, which is great. Now, so I'm going to take off the oysters because I have a couple ready beforehand. Like I said, I did a dealie on it, and they're ready to go. And because it's now cooked, you can use the yellow board, not a blue board, for all the... Let's just trim that up. One. Take off that little bit of the tail. The muscle now isn't extremely flavorful, but anyway. And we got another one here. That's what it looks like once it's grilled. Now that has been cooled down, so it's absorbed back a lot of its own liquid. We're going to trim that up as well. And once it's cooked, I often think that it is more like a mussel than it is a clam. They've just got that meatiness, that texture that people really, really enjoy. Got that one, and one more here. Now. Just like that. All right. We'll keep the other oysters back for another dish. So 1, 2, 3. That is ready to go. And now, I'm not going to open the smoker yet because those oysters aren't ready by any means. So I have some prepared, and we're going to open up and we'll have a look, see how they turned out. Right now, I'm going to put the salmon into the oven, and I'm going to have that set at 210 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to leave it for about 5 minutes. And then we'll turn it out. We'll add take it out. We're going to add a little bit of butter, get the skin nice and crispy, add a little bit of thyme, a little bit of lemon juice just to flavour it up really nicely. So we'll give that 5 minutes. The beauty of the new ovens in the kitchens, timer, that way we don't forget about anything. The smoked oysters. So again, some that I had ready already. The smell in the kitchen is absolutely beautiful with the smell of the smoked oysters. So let's have a look. Now, here they are. You can see them now. They've taken on quite a lot of the smoke. And I am just going to grab a smaller knife to open them. So, as I said, they're a little bit easier to open because they've already been pre-cooked, but you're just knocking back the little... It's got a little muscle here. Of course, it's not going to play ball with me. The main thing is don't stab yourself in the hand. That is ready. So there we are, a lovely cooked oyster. Nice and smoked, flavours of thyme and apple and a little bit of oak in it as well. So we'll pop that out as well. 3 oysters. Just go in deep. Beautiful. And there they are. Open much easier than a raw oyster. So 1, 2, 3. Beautiful looking oyster. We'll trim that up nicely. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 3 cooked oysters. We got 3 smoked oysters. Now, so we'll just trim them up again, cut them up, put them in with our grilled oysters. So really you're getting 2 flavors of the oysters. Like I said earlier, people that might be a little bit squeamish don't want to have the cooked oyster. Now they can have they don't want the raw oyster. They avoid them. Now we can have a cooked oyster. And as I said earlier, a lot of people wouldn't go near an oyster when I got here first, but now when we have it on our salmon dish, everybody's looking forward to trying it. There's not that many people that says no oysters, which is great. It's introducing another generation, another clientele to oysters. Now, we have our velouté here, ready to go. We have 1 minute left on the salmon, and we're going to get the salmon ready to go, and we'll finish our sauces. I'm going to chop a little bit of spring onion or scallions into our mash. Doesn't have to be too fine, doesn't have to be too chefy. Just make sure you clean your board after you dealt with the oysters, and make sure you clean your knife as well so no one gets sick. We've got to be very careful with over in the commercial kitchen with allergies. So now we have our mash. It's not too hot, good stuff. And we just add that in. Just gives it a nice color. And we mix it through. And it is ready to go. We don't want it too soft, we want it quite firm enough because we want to sit the salmon on top of it. And we have it ready to go. And that's staying nice and warm above the grill. Now, we're going to add the kale. There's my oven. Kale you can cook for 10 minutes, you can cook it for 4 minutes. It is entirely in how you like to eat it yourself. Now, it's not having that noisy. So now, it is still quite soft in the middle, which is the way I like to eat it. It is, again, salmon can be eaten from medium rare all the way till cremated. I would recommend having it a bit medium, so you still have that nice oil is left in the fish. It's got a lovely texture. The outside is crispy, the inside, while not raw, it is just that little bit soft. It is a beautiful texture. Now, so we're going to add a little bit of the thyme that we have over here into the pan. That's going to crisp up. We're going to add a little bit of butter, maybe a bit more than a little bit than people are used to, but again, we're not eating that, so there's nothing bad is going to happen, let's put it that way. And we have a little bit of the grilled lemon. So, we're going to swirl it around. I have my fish slice. You turn it over in the fish slice and hopefully we have a nice skin, or we'll start all over again, Stephen. Beautiful. Nice bit of nice crispy skin. Salmon cooked nicely in the middle. We don't want that butter to burn. So what we're going to do is when it's ready, we're going to slow it down by adding a bit of lemon juice. What will happen then is you get a little bit of beurre noisette or brown butter. So you're getting an extra added bit of flavor into the dish. And the lemon juice just stops the milk solids of the butter cooking. Nice bit of color. So I'm going to give that 1 more minute on the stove, on the grill. It's not too hot on the grill. And we'll just add our lemon juice. Like I said, that stops the butter from burning while adding flavor to the dish. Now, beautiful. So, our velouté. Again, we're going to add a touch of lemon. Try not to have the seeds in it. Beautiful. We have our oysters. In it goes. And we're just going to warm that through now. Onto the stove. And now the salmon is perfectly cooked. Again, I'm going to take the salmon off. And while your inclination is to literally serve it and put it on the plate straight away, with salmon, with oily fishes, I like to let the salmon rest as well. Like you'd rest a piece of meat, we just let the salmon come out of the pan, give it 1 minute to relax. It just means the fish cooks through. If you serve that fish now, it's still cooking in the middle. And someone's going to say, oh, that's not fully cooked. Give it a minute, that way it's cooked on the outside nicely and it's cooked through to the middle as well. Again, only to medium rare. So I'll leave that sitting there and we're going to plate in 1 minute. Now the kale is looking good. We'll add our spinach. Spinach takes 30 seconds. We have our pan with our shallots ready to go, so there's no pressure there. Finally, we just have to chop a little bit of chive, which I have here. I'll just do a little bit. It's only for sauce for 2 plates. Try not to bruise the chives when you're cutting them. My sharp knife will take care of that. So chives are ready to go. And we bring up our samphire. Drain off your veg into the pan. Turn up the pan again. Setting in the veg and cooking it through. Warming it up. At this stage, we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to the spinach because there's nothing worse than spinach that isn't seasoned. So a bit of black pepper. A little bit of salt. You do not need to season the samphire because the samphire obviously is quite salty coming from the oceans, but the spinach and the kale certainly need a little bit. So now let that cook down. And now we have our samphire. This takes about 90 seconds to cook. So we'll drop that now. We have our salmon ready, we have our mash ready, we have our sauce ready, we have our samphire almost ready, and we have our spinach ready. So now we're going to go to the pass and we're going to start plating. So we grab our hot plate. Very important that we have a hot plate. We get our warm hot mash, or Kilcannon or our champ, depending on what part of the country you're from. Sit that down there. Tuck it up. Mash is finished. We have our spoons. Lay a little bit of the spinach and the kale beside it. Nice and tucked in beside it. Beautiful. Simple. And this dish is, you know, it's got 4 main ingredients in it, and that's kind of ethos here at the hotel. We're not trying to blow you over with too many dishes. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. So when you come to the hotel, there's something that everybody can have to eat. He looks at the menu like that's what I'm having for dinner tonight when I go to the restaurant. So a bit of samphire on top. You want to try and make sure you get some of the grilled oyster and the smoked oyster on top. Again, it's quite an oily fish, so we don't sauce it, or we don't overly sauce it. Just a nice couple of drizzles of sauce, and that is it. And here we have our Clare Island organic salmon with Dune Castle smoked oysters, samphire, and spinach. Enjoy.